very similar kind of things are happening. I started hearing about Project 2025, and that was really motivating me to work for Joe, and really concerned about November. And then Joe, out of the country, ahead of personal, and nominated Kamala, and within 28 hours, we had our first rally in Rochester, because you call your girlfriends, and that's what you do. So I don't know how many of you already belong to Rochester for Harris Facebook group, but there's a lot. It's building every day. There are now about 6,000 members. It started with 3 people. And there's a lot of information in there. I can't get through everything about Project 2025 tonight in 20 minutes, which is a stretch. But if I can't, there's a lot of resources there, and we're planning other things. So I have a lot of information up here about resources. Okay, so let me see if we can get started. I don't think I can hold the mic. No, maybe I can. I'll use my left hand. I can do that. Okay, so remember back to 2017 when Trump took office, and every day we woke up in panic about what was going to happen today. It was chaos, and it was an onslaught of things. And all of it was just a mad blur of bad news. The chaos did not start settling down until the end of his administration. And at the end of his administration is when he really started to get busy. And what did he get busy doing? Doing the things that are in Project 2025. So this time, the chaos will not be chaos, but it still will be an onslaught. What they're planning for day one is their D-Day on America. So they're basically re-engineering everything. So Trump has said, I don't know anything about it. I don't know about Project 2025. That's ridiculous. You go through page after page after page. Their recommendation is reinstating the executive order that President Trump did. So whether he has read it, this is how I think about it. Okay, he can say that he didn't bake the lasagna. He can say that he didn't read the recipe for the lasagna. But you can be damn sure he's eating the lasagna. That's the stuff. All right, now let's see. And when you look at the crossover, I mean, the people who are involved in this, the guy who is one of the main co-authors of Project 2025 was the head, the chief of his Office of Management and Budget. And that's really important. That's the guy who did it under Trump's last administration. That's the guy who created this. Okay. In his last administration, about 2/3 of their proposals were adopted. So it's already the same thing. Okay. So how does it work? They have created 4 pillars. And these 4 pillars, you can see them here. The first one is focusing on the presidency and the White House. If they can consolidate all of the power into the White House. And this is something that they've been working on for decades. This goes back to the Reagan administration. This goes back to the idea of a unitary president, where all of the agencies do the president's bidding. So that's the first thing, that's their first pillar. The second one is make sure everyone throughout the government is a loyalist to Trump, to the president in office. Then, how do they get those people ready to take over? They prepare a pipeline. They have a LinkedIn system for the Christian nationalists. And that is where they're training everybody how to do this. And then, the final pillar is the playbook, the mandate for 2025. They're going to implement so much of it on day one, the day he swears in. This is a direct quote from Project 2025. And you can see they're deconstructing the centralized administrative state. So they want to undo everything. Okay, So these are the 5 sections. And since I'm going to be hitting you with a lot tonight, I want to encourage you. This is available online. You can download it. Pour yourself a glass of wine. And then these are the sections that we're going to be talking about tonight. Go and look at the issues that are most important to you. Okay? So that's there. They wrap it all in the flag. Everything you read, I'm going to give you some examples of how they start out, and you go, well, that's not so bad. And then you think about it, and then you go a little deeper, and you realize, no, this is chilling. This is terrible. Okay, so first section. This is the most important section, written in the most boring language you can imagine. And it is how they're going to get it done. The consolidation of power. One of the things that's the most important thing is implementing Schedule F. Doesn't it sound innocent? Doesn't it sound dull? Right? That's not a big deal. But Trump already tried to do it within 2 weeks of the election last time. Schedule F. Presidents normally will be able to appoint, let's see, I have it here. Presidents will normally be able to appoint about 4,000 to 5,000 people. That's the cabinet, that's their political appointees. That's what presidents do, that's okay. Schedule F will allow Trump to appoint 50,000. Okay? He's reclassifying the civil service, and he is putting in his appointees. And they are not selected on merit. They are selected on loyalty. So what we're talking about is how closely they're being interviewed for how close do they align with the president's goals, not whether or not they actually are a scientist, not if they're working with the VA, not they're going to replace nurses, they're going to replace people all the way down, and they give a little bit of lip service to institutional knowledge, but not unless you toe the line. So that's the first thing. And the scariest thing about that is they can do this. Let's see if I can. Okay. Once they have the Office of Management and Budget, which is where the author, one of the co-authors, worked. The scariest thing about that is we know that Congress passes the bills and the funding, but it's OMB that makes the installment payments. And so you might give, I'm going to make up some numbers, you might give Social Security $100,000 or $100 million, right? But he controls when they get that money. So are they going to be able to make payroll? Are they going to be able to plan? Are they going to be able to do their jobs? And the most important things in this, they're going to talk about whether or not these government employees can make testimony in congressional hearings. Because what Trump didn't like the last time was the number of people who said no to him. And the number of people who went to Congress and said, this is what's happening. The number of people who stood up, there will be no more standing up. Okay, so I'm going to skip through some of this stuff because this is just more of the same, focusing on who they're going to cut. They're talking about how important it is to reduce the size. And, we're going to, and it costs a lot if you're going to ask people to retire because, they have to have buyouts and all that. It's so much better if they can just fire them. On day one, this is what they're planning on doing. They already have the executive orders written. They're ready to go. A lot of them are what he already did, and then they've got a bunch of new ones. And they're going to pause all the investigations, including everything going on in the FBI. They want to combat the so-called, this is a quote from them, the so-called misinformation and disinformation. So they're trying to shut us down from talking, okay? And the important thing about the executive orders is they don't require Congress. It's just the president signs it, and it's an executive order. They're going to get rid of all of Biden's executive orders and reinstate everything Trump already had and add some more. Okay, and the performance for all those 50,000 employees will be based on progress that they make to the president's goal. Seniority doesn't matter, expertise doesn't matter, it's loyalty. This is a quote: unions are incompatible with government management. And just to show you some of the executive orders that are going to come back, okay? He's going to encourage all of the agency to renegotiate all of their union contracts, okay? Prevent union representatives from even using the phone to make a phone call. And I worked at a time for one of the agencies, and this is what happened with the unions. They're going to try and limit the time that you can make a grievance. They're limiting the time. They're really cutting down how anybody can object to anything that's happening. Now, we get into where they're starting to do it in agencies. So Section 2 is all about common defense. And one thing that's really interesting to notice that's in here, the media. Okay? And yeah, okay, the media is a part of our defense, but what are they going to do with that? So there's a couple of things. They want to get rid of all the woke policies, all right, especially in the State Department and in the media, all of this. Okay. The other thing that's just kind of mentioned in here, relatively simple, very on the page, is about this border protection. The Army can be involved. And what that means is the military is going to be involved on our protests, on our activities, what's happening at the border. They want the military personnel to be involved in building the wall and to do all of this. And the important thing to note that I didn't put on here is, with respect to the military, the National Guard. Ordinarily, the National Guard can be called by a governor or a mayor if there's a real problem in their town, a FEMA response or whatever, you can call on the National Guard. But you have to have authorization from the governor or from the mayor. Trump's not going to wait anymore. When he decides that something is a problem, he is going to send in the National Guard, and he's not waiting for anybody else to call him. And he decides whether it's an insurrection or just a public moment for free speech, like January 6th, right? Okay, but he is going to call them for all of the protests and things involving Black Lives Matter. Those were riots, not January 6th. Okay. The other thing that's really interesting in here to note is the intelligence one is Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, which is an agency I hadn't even heard of. Okay? What they don't like is that agency is involved with election security. Now, don't you kind of think cybersecurity matters in this day and age for voting? Well, they don't want them doing that. They're getting out of their lane. And that's not appropriate, so they're going to get that out. I just wanted to run through a quick example of the methodology in this, okay? I thought I would use the Corporation for Public Broadcasting because they really go on about that. They hate public broadcasting. So the first thing they do is they claim that public broadcasting has a bias, and they state that as if everyone agrees. And everyone means everyone they've spoken to. That's the everyone that Trump talks about. They are going to defund it by saying the president will refuse to sign any of the must-pass bills that have funding. Okay. Then they start saying all of this stuff, well, it's not so bad. Those libs shouldn't object because they're making money off the Sesame Street. So they defame, they defund, and they destroy. And what's important about that is that when you listen to something like radio and PR, where is it on the dial? It's way down at the left, right? Where the band is the largest, the range is the largest. So if they're no longer funded, then their argument is, well, then you're not a non-profit, non-commercial radio station. You're making your money through all those donors and members. That's not non-commercial. And you're not entitled to that low bandwidth. So they have to move them up to where they're competing for the higher numbers on the radio, and they also lose all of their status. They are not exempt from any of the fees. And also, if you think about it, when you're driving and you're driving down to wherever, Virginia, wherever, and you're looking for NPR because you want to catch the news, what else is on that low end of the dial? There you go. There you go. That's the non-commercial educational stations that we will have. Okay. So this is how it works. All right. They're very, very, very careful in this whole thing. Okay. The next thing they get to is the common good. Now that sounds really positive, right? That's a good thing, right? Okay. So I just want to give you an example of what they're doing with the Department of Agriculture. In the Department of Agriculture, the most important thing to people like us and things that affect our daily life is the Farm Bill, okay? And why does that matter? Because all of the nutritional programs that are in the federal government are in the Farm Bill. That's where SNAP is. That's where WIC is. That's where all the nutritional programs are in the Farm Bill. And they say, oh, well, that has nothing to do with agriculture. So for convenience and for clarity, we're going to move it out of agriculture and put it into health and human services where it belongs, where it's easier for them to cut. Right? And so the other things that they're doing is they're blaming the farmers, claiming that when they get the benefits after they have ruinous crops or a wildfire or horrific flooding, with that whole climate change isn't happening thing, they want to say, well, they're going to stop the farmers from getting paid from both of those sources, and the farmers are getting way too much benefit by having some of their insurance premiums paid by the federal government. So they're basically making the farmers get less benefits and pay more. So that's what's happening with the Department of Agriculture, some of what's happening. There's a lot more. Eliminating the Department of Education. Has anybody heard about that one? Yeah, there's a lot, okay? You get, the list is just amazing to me. They hate the Department of Education, and when they get rid of the Department of Education, a lot of other things go with that. All the Title I schools go with that, okay? So that we're not getting any of the federal Title I funding. And they are attacking the teachers' union. They're attacking all kinds of, it's shocking. Okay. I'm getting a little lost here. Then the other things that they are doing is increasing the rights to parental rights. Now, that's one of those phrases, again, that sounds like, I'm a parent, I'm going to be involved in my kids' education. But what they're talking about is the Moms for Liberty, who are banning all the books and telling not only what their kid gets to read, but what my kid gets to read. Okay? That's, so that's what they're doing, and you should look at what they're doing with the Department of Education. Okay. The interesting thing that they're going to be doing in education and in materials, they don't want anything about the LGBTQ mentioned anywhere in any of the materials, right? So, and if there are books that are available or materials that are available, don't say gay, don't say gay, don't, and if you have that material and you give it to a child, it's considered distribution of porn, which they have criminalized. So this is the kind of thing that they're doing. And they're eliminating a lot of the protections in other areas. This is all over the place. And when they have a hated issue, they put it into as many agencies as they possibly can to get rid of it. If you want to get foreign aid, you can't use that language. If you want to do anything, they're going to remove this. They're removing it from the Department of Labor. They're removing it all over the place. Yeah, social services, all of it. And they're cutting what Medicaid is going to pay for. The DOJ is a whole right on its own. Okay, but pausing all of the prosecutions that DOJ is doing, including a couple of those that got re-indicted this week. And I want to say that the people who have complained about having diversity included in their workplace, those people who complained about it suffered from discrimination, and so that's going to be prosecuted by DOJ. Okay? Okay, so when they talk about the good, what they're talking about is cutting all the safety nets, changing education. You need to dig into this, okay? This is another big one, right? Okay. I'm going to read you this quote because this just blew me away, okay? Because liberal states have now become sanctuaries for abortion tourism, HHS should use every available tool, including cutting funds, to ensure that every state reports exactly how many abortions have taken place within its borders, at what gestational age of the child, and for what reason, the mother's state of residence, and by what method. Okay? They want New York to track that and report it. Okay. And they also, this is another direct quote, and I can't explain it to you any more than in their own words. It should also ensure that statistics are separated by category: spontaneous miscarriages, treatments that incidentally result in the death of the child, such as chemotherapy, stillbirths, and induced abortion. In addition, the CDC should require monitoring and reporting of complications due to abortion, and in every instance of a child being born alive after an abortion. That's something that Trump keeps talking about, and it's just out of his mouth. Yeah, it doesn't have, and I wish some reporter would stand up and say, can you tell me which state that happened in, and when was the date? And because we need to get on that. We need to find out about that. But the data that they don't want collected is anything about gender identity, which they say legitimizes the unscientific notion that men can become women and vice versa, and it goes on from there. Okay, so they get to decide what science is, they get to decide what studies are funded, and they get to decide what the blue states do. But this is about all of the ways that the Department of Health and Human Services is prioritizing collection and dissemination of privacy-protected data. All right, so when Michelle Obama was talking about them keeping information and tracking things, this is what she's talking about. It's not just when they're on throwaway, it's throughout where they're talking. They want all of the data, and they wrap it in these lovely terms about caring about maternal mortality rates and all of this, but no, they want this information, and the emphasis on the states that are promoting tourism, they're trying to say, they also want to remove a lot of the, oh my God, no, it's huge. They may pay lip service to some of the privacy issues, saying, well, we're not going to track your name, but you are going to assign a unique number, and therefore, thank you. This is another direct quote. The CDC's abortion surveillance and maternity mortality reporting systems are woefully inadequate. Yeah, I feel that, right? Okay, so it's just shocking. This is, everything, everywhere, all at once. This is what they're doing throughout this. It goes down into such minutia. You would not believe the detail of this. This is what we were talking about with the dissemination. Okay, Department of Labor. Also huge, a lot in there. Some of the most important things in this is they're talking about what constitutes discrimination, and one of the things that they're doing away is disparate impact. So that unless they're only looking at discrimination against you personally, you can't say, all of the women there are getting paid less or whatever it is. You can't do that kind of analysis. Everything has to be just doing away with it. Okay? And they're doing away with all of the protections for sexual orientation, gender, transgender, and sexual characteristics. And that's the page site if you want to look. I'm not making this up. Okay, and then there's more information on collecting family statistics. Family comes up a lot, but it's only a particular type of family. The other thing that labor needs to be aware of is that they're trying to change the way overtime is calculated. Instead of doing it on a week, they want to extend it out for a month. And then they also think that because people in America are working too hard, instead of getting paid for your overtime, you should get vacation time, right? Because we all are able to take vacation whenever we want, right? So it's another way of them saying, well, you're not going to actually get paid, okay? And this is another quote from the thing. Overtime thresholds should not punish the businesses. And it goes on, okay? And it's the poor businesses, they're really suffering. You need to look at labor. So this is some of the stuff that, just to show you the minutia, okay? Baby formula. They want to do away with general regulations that cause unnecessary delay and manufacturing sale for baby formula, okay? How many people think, yeah, we don't need to know what's going into our baby formula? I don't need to know. And the other thing, doing away with school lunches, they're going to lower the amount that the family has to qualify for school lunches, and they actually write with some of these programs are giving kids lunch when they're not even in school. They have summer programs, and they're outraged. That's just wrong, right? We can't have that. So the other thing is, this one really got me. They want to remove the regulation that requires that meat and poultry that goes in interstate commerce only come from federally inspected facilities, and they think that's over-regulation. Okay, they don't think that's over-regulation, but it has to do with chemical abortion. That cannot go over interstate lines. But, what you eat, that doesn't need to be inspected. Okay. They're doing the Environmental Protection Agency is another. Any agency that said no to Trump on any of his plans, he's going to decimate and put in his own people. And there's a lot in there about Medicare and Medicaid. The economy, I think I can sum this up with, if they think they can make money, they're going to get rid of the federal program. And one of the things that shocks people is the elimination of NOAA, right? Tracking hurricanes is something that people can pay for. And they won't embarrass him. They won't embarrass him by telling him he can't. NOAA, I'm sorry, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. Okay, they want that dismantled. And they want many of its functions eliminated, sent to other agencies, privatized, or placed under control of the states and the territories. And if you're interested in what they're doing with NOAA, that's at page 664. Okay, how many pages is the whole thing? It's 922. And yeah, I printed them out. And it's horrible. Well, I haven't even finished it yet. It's amazing. It's terrifying. It's just, they want the states to be given the right to create alternatives for unemployment insurance and Social Security disability. They should be able to come up with different ways of creating, because, setting that out and privatizing that is such a good idea. Okay, all right. This one is interesting because we talk about what's an independent regulatory agency. What's not on this list? The Federal Reserve, Department of Justice. There are a lot of agencies that have functioned for our lifetime as independent agencies. And they're just simply not independent agencies anymore, because it didn't say explicitly they're independent agencies. But even these, they have been attacking the Security and Exchange for decades, and they're being successful now in the Supreme Court that they got. Okay? So Security Exchange, the Consumer Finance Protection Bureau, Elizabeth Warren was there. So that's gone, right? I mean, communications, and it's just shocking to me, the election. I've got something on that specifically here. Okay. They just say in here that the president has control over the DOJ. Because everyone agrees that, right? And so, through the president, they can tell them what to do and what to prosecute. And it's just shocking. Okay. So we need another session. And what we're going to do about having another session, Carol is over here making a recording of what we're doing tonight, and she's going to create some short videos with ordinary people talking about what concerns them in Project 2025 that we can share. Rochester for Harris has lots of resources in the file. If you go to the Facebook page, at the top, there's a file section, and there's videos that you can share, there's material you can share, there's a lot. So we're also going to set up Zoom calls. The committee is here, most of us. And so we're going to set up Zoom calls for people who want to know more. And I think we need to do one on education, we need to do one on labor, we need to do one on LGBTQ, we need to do a lot of them. So there's a lot there. And we have resource lists up here for anybody who's not on Facebook. Okay, so the other thing to bear in mind with this is something we've been working on since the Reagan administration. And if they can't get it in Project 2025, it will become Project 2029. So as fired up as we are right now, we not only need to get her elected, we need to get her re-elected. And then we need to keep being involved. And we can't let go. We cannot stop. Okay, so I do have a little bit of good news. Okay, there are things that we can do. One of the ways I've been hearing about this, and then Heather Cox Richardson had a Zoom call that broke the internet because so many people were on it about Project 2025. And at the time that they came out in early July, about 70% of the American population didn't know what Project 2025 was. Because of events like this, and because of people talking to their neighbors, and because of people coming up and saying, well, what is this? It's now down to about 50%. We're doing it. We're doing it. We're doing it, yeah. The more people know about this, even Republicans, and I want to say there are a lot of Republicans who don't want this. This is not their idea. And so we have to this is not about party. This is not about party. It's not even about one election. This is about a systematic destruction of what America stands for. It's kind of like Animal Farm, where they say, all pigs are created equal, but some are more equal than others. And that is what they believe. And they will tell you they believe in white supremacy. And in their mind, this is perfectly rational, because there are people, specifically the people who are in their room, who were designed to run the country. And the rest of us were designed to not run the country. So that's what this is about. And we have to fight that by standing up. We fight that by voting. We fight that by increasing the voting and writing the postcards and writing the letters and making the calls into all of the swing states. And there are resources and events and things that you can get involved in. We've got resources lists, we've got events lists, we've got ways to get involved at Rochester for Harris on Facebook. Yeah?
Do you have the postcards?
I think there are some here tonight. And we can tell you, if you ask that question on Rochester for Harris Facebook, I will give you the site that you go to get the postcards. And they make a difference. And in many ways, I think it used to be phone calling was the best way to get people. Well, that's not true. The best way is knocking on the doors. And we also have that as an opportunity. If you have the ability to get into a carpool, we have connections in Pennsylvania where you can go and knock on doors and talk to people who need. These are people who are Democrats, but they don't always want to vote. Okay? So they're persuadables. And what we're going to do is make sure they're registered and make sure that they go and make a plan. Yeah. So we can do this. I know it's hard. And I know we have to step out of our comfort zone. But believe me, it's worth it.